You know what, Kyle? It's funny because during the our fall sports awards, which we had probably 500-600 people here, we were standing room only capacity, or out in the hallway. One of the things I said was it actually inspired me. It gave me some renewed life. The football team struggled heavily this year, and they ended up winning their last 3 games. The school itself, just the mood and the tone, and I think if you ask any athletic director, a good football season, a good fall season with anybody that takes you to sectional finals and things like that, phenomenal. And just, they were a team. I mean, they truly were a team. That's probably the biggest thing I can say is it inspired teamwork. It inspired teamwork within other teams. Other teams were coming to watch them. They were going to cheer on other teams. And the Cougar Pack, which I got to give a shout out to them, they were a huge part of it. Well, they started with selling T-shirts, which inspired a lot of kids, and they then started, hey, can we get fan buses? And in the past, I'd be like, yeah, we'll get a fan bus. We get 4 people to sign up. We really use social media. We also use the Cougar Pack during one of our pep rallies to do a video on respect, because we use pride here as our acronym, and one of those things is respect. So during the week of respect, we said, hey, I want something on sportsmanship, and I want something on respect and this and that. And they went out and did a phenomenal job with that. Kids bought in, the kids saw it on AM Schalick, kids were going around using some of the quotes they had done. So it just, the Cougar Pack has really entwined themselves into everybody. Well, they're proven. I mean, let's face it, they're proven. The one thing that's probably eating at Joey right now, Mr. Mannella, is another state championship. Co has been here. It's interesting because Mr. Cognac and Mr. Peranzoli have been here for 30 years. Mr. Cognac has coached 3 sports for 30 years. Between Mr. Cognac and Mr. Peranzoli, we are somewhere around 160 to 180 seasons coached by those 2 coaches combined. That consistency, like a Mr. Mannella, like a Mr. Cognac, they're teaching the kids the right things. They're telling them what they need to do, and they're teaching them to be better people, more so than even soccer. And that's what high school sports is about.
Well, the idea over the last couple of years was just to get better every year, and obviously the way the season ended last year, with losing in the semifinal, I think the first thing on everybody's mind was getting to the South Jersey final, as we felt that we could make that extra step. We also felt we could compete for the division, but we knew, the division's tough, game in, game out. It was tough, and it's something we haven't been able to do yet. So, going into the season, that's what we were looking at. As things started shaking out, it looked like we had a chance at the division. In the past seasons, we'd always maybe win the first couple games, and then once we got to some of the tougher teams, we'd lose a couple, we'd fall a couple games behind, and by mid-season, the division was realistically out of reach. With winning, particularly that first Delsey game, that kind of put it into everybody's heads that, hey, we can win this division too. That week, actually, as far as pushing these guys or motivating these guys were pretty motivated to reach those goals. But I think that week in general, because it was the first week where we had to play 3 winning teams. We played Pittman, who eventually won the class division. We played Delsey, who was right behind us, and it was the Group 3 #1 seed. And I believe Glassboro were the 3 games that week, and Glassboro at the time had only lost to Delsey. So it was 3 tough games. 2 of them were back-to-back. We had a couple injuries. I know in the Delsey game, Keith Harris didn't play because he got hurt against Pittman. Matt Francisi was out, all season up to that point, so he wasn't playing. And we were pretty beat up from Pittman. So to go into Delsey and win, that was sort of a momentum builder on its own. Everybody were realizing, hey, we got the goalie. Chris came up big that game. We can get down to good teams. We didn't have the lead against Pittman and Delsey, and we can come back. So they really started to believe themselves at that point, and then we went out on senior night and beat Glassboro. That was a huge part of our season. But I think that what brought everything into, hey, we can really do this. And so the focus from that point on was just getting ourselves playing better soccer. And as the season went along, we kept playing better soccer, and my only role at this point, when things are going right, your only role is to maybe keep the guys from getting overconfident and losing focus as to what the big picture was, not getting too excited over a win. But these guys, having seniors is one thing. Having seniors who are true leaders and who are focused and want to win, play as a team and win as a team. My job was sort of easy from that aspect. I mean, it was huge. To his credit, I'm not going to change what I do. So I've been the type of guy to, lay it out there for a lot of people, and they don't always respond the way I want them to respond. And sometimes I think maybe I should have handled it differently, but that's the way. We sat down after an early season preseason game where he let in some goals that weren't bad goals, but just goals that if you want to win games, you got to make those saves. And he really took it to heart that it's his responsibility to keep the ball in the net, regardless of what happens in front of him. When we weren't playing well, they did what they needed to do to keep the ball out of the net, to complement the other players. So I mean that's huge, because what's really remarkable about that group, and you throw Matt Francisi in there, Colin's the only one that played club soccer, and really at any level that's huge. That type of experience is huge. So for these guys to basically use their high school experience to do what they did this year is, I don't know if it's not unheard of, it's not very common. The teams that win have teams that come from strong clubs. And we had a couple guys that played club soccer, but for our defense, our goalie obviously, but for 3 of our 4 guys to basically just be high school soccer players. I think Keith played a little bit of club soccer, but Brailsford never did, and Matt Francisi never did. It speaks a lot to their character and their willingness to learn what we set out and to apply that on the field. When you score goals, it makes it easier for everybody. With the exception of the final game, we get shut out all year, and when that goal's coming, it's easier to just to work through some games where things aren't going great, and those guys are going to find a way to score. That's the difference from a lot of teams. A lot of teams out there were just as good as us in a lot of areas, but they couldn't stop Tyler and Mike. And that's how you win games. And we've had a lot of teams around here that have been really good, but didn't have that complement of scores. So you lose games even though you're better. And to have multiple scores, it's not like one team can, if they want to shut down Mike, fine, you can try to shut down Mike, but that means you're going to give more space to Tyler and Dan and Kevin, and those guys did the job. All of them did the job all year. I think it does a good job of setting a standard or something to shoot for. They got a little taste of success, and a lot of times that can go a long way to keeping the guys motivated and realizing that if you want to achieve something along those levels, you got to put in some work. You don't just show up and it gets presented to you. But next year obviously will be a challenge in itself. We'll see what what realistically we can do or what we can achieve to reach for. I'm sure their goals will be high, and it'll be a challenge for them. One thing that they've done over 4 years is kind of figure out what the challenge is and meet it and not underachieve. So I'm sure next year's team will do the same thing, and we'll do as well as we can. I don't think, the way these guys have been, I don't think we'll look back on it and regret anything or say, darn, we blew that. We've reached our potential the last few years, and this was a great way to cap it off and to the guys next year will have to do the same.